Hey everybody, I hope you all are doing well and welcome back to Michael's Matters. Now, hopefully as most of you know, I am Michael. Hi, hello. And because we have made it to the middle of this year, just about exactly, and we're a little more than through the middle of President Biden's first term, I want to recap what is President Biden's plan to put the Social Security program and the 68 million people who are on Social Security programs, so whether that's Social Security Retirement, Social Security Survivors, Social Security Disability SSDI, as well as Supplemental Security Income SSI, and really all the other iterations of Social Security. What is President Biden's plan to put them back on a more solid financial footing and put more money in the pockets of seniors? And additionally, we get a chance to talk about whether or not this initial playbook for Social Security still is relevant or even possible, because undoubtedly there is a huge need for bold action to help to repair the damage of years of Social Security program atrophying to the point that over the next decade or so, it could no longer be able to pay out full benefits and potentially have a 24% reduction in retirees' benefits by as early as 2033. So today, we are reviewing President Biden's playbook to how to fix Social Security and talking about whether or not he could actually implement these changes in the remainder of his first term. Now, this is Michael's Matters, and before we get to it, if you like these videos, if you find them interesting, if you find them helpful, or hey, if you at least find them useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you can get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. All right, now, let's get down to the video. So I don't have any specific order for how we're going to start these, but the first one that we are going to talk about, and I think was really going to have the biggest effect on the most needy American seniors, that is, if it could ever get implemented, is President Biden's proposed increase of something called the Special Minimum Benefit for Lifetime Low Wage Worker, or the SMBLLW. I guess it doesn't really work very well. Either way, the Social Security Administration defines this as the Special Minimum Benefit, which is a primary insurance amount, or PIA, enacted in 1972 to provide adequate benefits to long-term low earners, end quote. Currently, there's a range of how much a low-wage worker who, throughout their working life, didn't make enough wages, at least large enough to contribute a significant enough amount to the Social Security Trust Fund to get really any benefits back out as Social Security benefits once they retire. Remember that Social Security benefits are calculated on a few things. One is how long somebody works, two is what age do they retire, and three is how much money they paid into it via a payroll tax into the Social Security Trust Fund. Because Social Security is funded by a percentage that is taken out from all of our paychecks before we get them. And it's one of the reasons why the money on our paychecks looks considerably different than the money that actually goes into our pockets because of that tax. So if someone didn't work long enough or didn't pay enough in, right now, there is currently a sliding scale of benefits that could be as little as $49.40 a month on the low side, or all the way up to a max of $1,033.50 on the high side. Meaning that if someone had worked a minimum of 40 quarters or 10 years, that's the minimum, but had very, very low income throughout those years, when they retire, they could still potentially get that minimum $49.40 a month or $592.80 a year. That number goes up for each additional year more that somebody had worked and paid into Social Security. But if someone worked the full complement of 30 years, but still only made really, really low income and only put a little bit of money in, then that's when they would get the $1,033.50 a month or $12,402 a year in Social Security benefits. That is the max minimum benefit. Yeah, max minimum. The great thing about these amounts, yes, they are low, but they are considerably higher than what somebody in this situation would have gotten had they hadn't used the normal Social Security calculation for their benefits. But the problem here is obvious, because even at the maximum benefits of $1,033.50 a month or $12,402 a year, that isn't enough to cover most people's basic daily needs, let alone to be able to live on. As an alternative to this strategy, though, President Biden, early on in his presidency, had proposed to change how the minimum benefits were formulated so that instead of having a minimum and maximum income based on wages for low-wage workers, rather it would be based off the federal poverty level, or the FPL. The FPL is a metric that the government uses to know if you are impoverished or not. So the border for impoverishment is set at 100% FPL. So if you are below 100%, then you are impoverished according to the government. And if you are above that, then you are not impoverished according to the government. So if we look at the chart for a single person, the FPL for 2023 is at $14,500 $580 a year in income. That's for the contiguous United States. If you live in Hawaii or Alaska, they are a bit more expensive because living there is more expensive. So they actually will have a higher rate. But under President Biden's proposal to raise the lowest income seniors' benefits, they would peg the minimum Social Security benefits to 125% of the federal poverty level. So if 100% is at $14,580 a year for 2023, at 125%, those benefits would be at $18,225, which would be the new minimum amount that someone can get on the Social Security benefits, even if they had really low income. And this is a considerable step up in income from $12,402 where it is at right now. And in fact, it would be an increase of $3,645 a year, or $303 a month, or 68% more than the current Social Security minimum. So that is the first proposal that President Biden is banking on that we're going to cover. And the next biggest change that President Biden had at least hoped to make to update Social Security to help seniors to get additional benefits was to change the way that the yearly cost of living adjustment, or COLA, was calculated. Now, so this is a much, much bigger change, as it would improve the financial situation of all Social Security benefits, not just those with the lowest levels of income, because the COLA is applied equally to all Social Security benefits, regardless of size, but that also makes it quite expensive. Normally, on a yearly basis, Social Security will look at the rising costs that Americans have and adjust their Social Security benefits via a cost of living adjustment. This last year, because of the immense amount of inflation that the nation felt, the COLA was one of the largest that it had been in living history at 8.7%. But most years, that COLA number is considerably lower, and even in some low inflation years, it can be as low as $0. The heart of how this change would work would be to modify the way that COLAs are calculated so that they more accurately help seniors cover their daily cost of living. Because right now, the COLA is based on a metric called the CPIW, or the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers. It is basically a basket of goods that urban clerical workers buy every month, so things like food and clothing and housing and gas and all those kinds of costs of living. And each month, the price of each of those goods is compared to the price of each of those goods in the current month from the previous month. And the difference between the two is the rate of inflation month to month, or it could actually be done year to year. Social Security takes these measurements from the third quarter of the year, so July, August, and September. They look at that inflation, and every year they create the COLA based off that specific information that goes into effect as of January. The problem with the current system is the CPIW, because it is a measurement of cost for the average urban clerical worker. These costs, well, they're going to be different than what the average seniors' costs are. And those variations mean that seniors are getting yearly increases to help with their cost of living based off the cost of living of non-seniors' expenses, because older Americans have more costs in specific areas and higher costs like medication, healthcare, and transportation that the average urban clerical worker, well, they don't. This leads the calculator to not be correctly weighted to fairly adjust Social Security benefits to accurately reflect older Americans' actual cost of living. So that is why a lot of seniors always end up feeling a bit short-ended at the end of the month when their benefits checks run out. President Biden's plan would switch out the CPIW for something called the CPIE, which actually does better reflect the cost. In fact, it's the CPIE is the Consumer Price Index for the elderly, so it is hyper-focused on the costs that seniors have. That year over year, those costs tend to increase much, much faster than what is measured on the standard CPIW for the average clerical worker. So by changing this up, the CPIW to the CPIE, it would put more dollars into seniors' pockets because it accurately reflects their real life costs, and also that way so they don't feel like their benefits are falling as far behind as their cost, at least as much. So overall, at this very moment, none of these proposed changes from President Biden have passed, and they seem kind of far off from doing so. And in fact, it seems a bit discouraging considering how much money has been spent on a lot of other programs in a lot of other countries, that something like these two couldn't find a little bit of space in the budget. I mean, the first proposal to increase the special minimum benefits for low-income seniors, it would have been pretty negligible in cost, because although back in the 1990s there were around 200,000 seniors on the program, as wages have increased and the bar for low income has not, now only about 20,000 older Americans qualify for the program. So getting it up to a more livable increase of 125% FPL would help some of the neediest senior Americans that are around. And also, it's not that expensive because there's not that many. Now, the only caveat to this that I would be maybe a little concerned about is for those folks who are trying to game the system. Maybe work just enough, like 10 years or 11 years in one day, and then stop, but still have a guaranteed income of 125% FPL for life, which is pretty good. So that could be something that really raises up the numbers of participants and the cost if this ever got passed. But I think the number of people who would benefit would also greatly outweigh those. The big, hairy, expensive reform would be the alteration of the COLA calculator, because it would affect all 68 million beneficiaries on Social Security nationwide, and that is gonna be pricey. Of course, the plan to get the additional funding for any of these programs would be drummed up via an increased tax on Americans who make over $400,000 a year. But given the current makeup of Congress, with Republicans running the House and only just really willing to work out a debt ceiling to avoid a major fiscal catastrophe nationwide, changes like these don't seem to be, at least in the cards from my perspective, for the rest of President Biden's first term. If he gets a second one, then we'll have to see. All right, so that's it for today's Michael's Matters, and I really hope that you enjoyed these videos, and if you did, if you found them helpful, if you found them useful, or hey, if you at least found them interesting, please don't forget to like and subscribe, because it does really help the channel to grow, and we are so thankful for that. But also, you get updates when our newest and most informative videos become available. So, for Michael's Matters, I'm Michael, hoping that you take care of yourself, take care of others, and have a happy, healthy